People want to make things, and I find this all the time. People come up to me and say, hey, I want to make stuff. Where do I start?
Anybody can be an indie developer. I go to high schools and tell kids, you can start coding tonight. You have a computer at home, you can start programming. You can start learning how to program right now and make a game.
Things like Game Maker and Unity, they didn't exist in the 80s. You had to be a computer programmer with a background in mathematics to make a video game. Now you can be anybody.
Just go for it, just make games. That's the real advice for how to get started in indie game development, is just make things.
Okay, hi everybody. Hey, pay attention to me for a minute. Me. So this is Train Jam. Yay! So, the theme of the Game Jam is disconnected.
Game jams are like rapidly prototyping a game within 48 hours or up to a week, usually with other people, just making a game fast and dirty, usually around a central theme.
Train Jam is a game jam on a train from Chicago to San Francisco. It's a 52-hour train ride, and it's going to get us into San Francisco right before GDC. You can sort of start to form teams now, because I figure this is one of the few times I'm going to have everybody all together. So at this point, I'm going to leave you all to sort of brainstorm how you're going to make a game with the theme disconnected. Disconnected. All right, so go brainstorm.
Well, we make games because we, I guess, love games, and we've always loved games. I mean, doesn't everybody want to make games?
You know, it feels a lot. Making games feels like playing games.
Seeing all these AAA titles and everything, it looks sort of like so high budget, and you must have to know, you must have to be a genius to make a game, but you can really just be anyone and make a game.
We've got basically two programmers, me and Maurizio, and then two artists, designers, like Kaiser, and Mark. That's the rough division, so we don't have anything sorted for sound.
Sound makes it believable, makes it part of this world. You know, our world is filled with sound. The way we make a visual come alive is giving some of that realness to it through sound.
The human brain doesn't really perceive timing and rhythm visually. You need sound for that, or at least sound's a lot better at delivering and helping you understand that information.
I'm primarily on music, he is primarily on programming, he is primarily on art, and you are primarily on system design.
Basically, what I do all day is I write code. And the code is what makes everything run. What the artists do is they create the art and the animation, and what I do is I make them come to life. I basically program the engine that runs the whole game.
Basically, without you, the game wouldn't run, and without me, the game would be a black screen.
I came to games as I want to make weird art stuff, and I can do a bit of everything, and that all comes together so perfectly in independent gaming. You know, marrying the fact that I want to draw, and then I want to animate, and then I want to do sound design, and then I want to program, and then I want to write. Games brings all that together. It's like the ultimate artistic medium.
We kind of all knew what our strengths were, so basically I'm an artist, and Devin's a programmer, and Alan wanted to do music.
The basic idea was, guy has a shield, he can glide, he can bash, or he can throw it, and he has to retrieve it if he throws it.
We want to use a certain prototype controller, which of yours is kind of a weird slider, which are also going to be exhibited at GDC.
Since the theme was disconnected, we decided the game would be Disconnect Ted, and Ted is just trying to disconnect himself from everything, social media and the internet, just because he doesn't want it to control his life. So it's gonna be like a puzzle platformer with combat, where he's fighting aspects of social media. Maybe he'll be fighting internet cookies because he wants to delete his internet history or stuff like that.
Gone are the days of the single solitary bedroom coder. Now it's about communities creating these ideas, forming these little indie dream teams to create games, and then maybe splitting apart after that and forming different teams.
I think an indie dev is marked by passion. So it's complete commitment to creative integrity and that final end user experience, with as little commercial compromises as possible.
So we're about 5 hours into the jam now, and we're just showing our progress for tonight. It's got acceleration and deceleration. You can jump. He jumps a little higher if you hold the jump button down. If you're at the top of your jump and you're still holding the jump button, he uses the shield to glide. And you can hold the button to take the shield out.
I don't really have like a recipe for making a game. I just kind of get a bad idea and then I just kind of stomp on it until it either dies or turns into a good one.
We came around to the fact that actually games where you pilot ships and shoot broadsides are kind of a classic and they're nice. So if you get 2 of these, you can row. So each player has got one.
But I didn't want it to be boats because boats are boring. So I thought that maybe they could be monsters because I like drawing monsters.
No. You haven't mentioned the title yet.
Ah, yeah, it's called Monsterbation. Well, there's a bunch of monsters shooting at each other.
Instead of bending.
There is this debate about whether games should be fun. And I think games should be entertaining, is my definition of it. Fun is one route to entertainment. It's the route that I usually use. You know, I always want my games to be fun.
As the water began to rise, Claire vowed to save this little rectangle in as many restarts as it took.
So I think already there are games which have affected me, that have felt great, that have used the medium well, that are not fun. Gone Home isn't fun. There's no definition, there's no way of defining Gone Home as a fun game. I didn't feel, I wasn't entertained by it in that way. I was entertained by that game by the setting, by the mood, by the ambience.
There's this girl. Her name is Lonnie. She gave me this tape and said, "You have got to listen to this."
There's this new group of games that aren't about like combat, you know, they're about like being in a place and experiencing it. And maybe it's about puzzles, or maybe it's about, you know, discovering more like abstract things about the world, or maybe it's about very literal stuff like Gone Home, where it's about individual humans and writing that they've done and their voices and all that kind of stuff. Where I kind of think of it as game developers saying, if we take a first-person shooter and remove the shooting, what's the interesting thing that is still left there?
Everyone's making first-person shooters, and now we're making games that deal with, like, you know, a child with cancer, right? Like,
or it's still a shooter, but it deals with like the feelings of like remorse and like all of these other emotions that are just not something you see in games. And so to have this time be like when people are trying to take things more seriously in terms of like what games can do and what game, it's not just a murder simulator. No, it's something that can like actually teach you something about life.
I think the biggest thing that I personally find fun in games is being surprised. You know, when I'm just like knocked off the edge of my seat, when I'm like thrown for a loop, when I'm kind of like delicately sort of pushed around, right? And be like, hey, no, come here, do this. There's something out there that's like messing with me and toying with me and kind of inviting me into its world. I think more than anything, what I want my player to be is engaged, you know? And that means a little something different for every person, but I want you to work. I want you to have to work. Like, I want to start the conversation, and I want you to finish it.
I would imagine by now everybody has had sort of a first pass at their prototype, you know, have done some play testing and have sort of moved on to the refining and polishing stage. That's if they're like super duper on track. I know a few people have restarted a few times or tweaked things here and there, so they're probably a little further behind. So it's been going well. Everybody seems to be having a really, really good time.
And I actually had made his legs a little bit smaller than the rest of his body, just for the art style. Oh my God. I don't get it.
It looks great.
No, he doesn't. And like he doesn't even need the ground to jump. I'm deleting him and starting over completely.
When you're really excited about doing something, you'll do it, you know, all the time. And so even when we started it, every 2 months a game came out, bam, bam, and we're making brand new stuff people hadn't seen, even after making games for a decade.
The indie scene is a very supportive scene. You can come in, you can learn from people in the scene, and people are incredibly, incredibly open. They're not, secretive about their process.
It's very community-oriented, more so than any scene I've ever been a part of. People really have each other's backs in this way that I've never seen before.
Me, not you.
Oh, you want to go this way?
Well, you wanted to turn
yeah.
360, and we're fucked.
Okay, so we've been working on our little rowing boat game. We've been making some progress in the physics. There's a little kind of boat there. The graphics are still not included. They are made over here. So far it looks very crude still. But now you can actually control it with the controllers.
Playtesting is the single most important thing you can do while making a game.
That's also why we have people playing like right from day one, hour one pretty much, because the earlier you are and you have to face your own vision of it and realize that this is not how other people see it, the less painful it is.
I mean, it's one of those things you keep hearing. People saying like, oh, my game isn't ready yet for other people to playtest it. And it's the thing that makes us cringe every time we hear it.
Yeah,
because
like the longer you wait, the worse it will get.
Because you're just getting more and more stuck in your vision of what you think the game is, but you don't know. You're making it. Like, you're the least qualified person to ever say anything about this game.
Game design is about iteration. It's about testing, cycling, looking, observing, making those tweaks, balancing. It's like sculpting, and so the more you do it, I believe, the better you get.
Everybody come in, get your things set up, and I'm gonna go round up everybody.
Now
Yeah.
arriving Sacramento.
All right, hey everybody! Congratulations everyone for making a game!
I'm Anson Good. We made a 2D puzzle platformer called Disconnect Ted.
It's sort of like a speedrun game. So you glide and then you end up in these sort of temples where you have to kill everybody.
We ended up making a game about monsters kind of squirting substances at each other.
We're just gonna let everybody play all the games. Who wants to play everybody's game?
You don't have to be a comp sci major, which is predominantly white males. Now you can have anyone who's like, maybe they're a fine artist to start with, and now they want to start making games, and now there are tools to enable them to do so.
But distribution's the big difference now, and the fact that there is the internet. So now everybody can make a game and put their game out, and that just makes it more competitive.
The biggest factor was actually not only Steam, but really Apple. iOS opened up the App Store, and that kind of changed everything because it allowed people to push their very small games, very small visions, and make money off of it.
The tools are free, they're easy to use. You can teach yourself to make a world-class game using, tutorials online that are free.
I think it's really an awesome time to see this kind of happening where people are sort of pushing what a game is and like what a game has to be about.
It feels like the punk rock wave for video games.
No matter how many indie games you play or how many video games you play, that there's always going to be something new.
And being able to code now it's like magic, right? It's like being able to quickly sit down and take this little idea that you have and then make something amazing happen. It feels like magic.
It's absolutely exciting to me that we have a whole another generation of kids and of game designers who are being able to start way ahead of where everyone 20 years ago started. But once they have these skills, then they can create almost anything they want to. It's like holding up a paper airplane and running with it. And the fun part is letting go and seeing where it goes. And who doesn't want to run underneath that plane?
I believe in games as the most potent medium of our time.
We can really say tender personal things and confess our life experience in the form of a game and be heard on those terms. That's magic to me.
There's definitely indie games that are deconstructing what games are.
People are making games about everything from like divorce to cancer to love.
What you're seeing is people who are expressing themselves in games because this is the aesthetic form of their lives.
There's this permission granted by this community to please try something, do something weird, impress me, surprise me.
This is my child in a lot of ways. It's very personal to me, so trying to pitch it to a larger company and say, hey, give me money for this, and you have ownership of my vision seems like a terrible thing.
Art is about making people look at things, and then sort of that changes your vision as a spectator to then go back into the world and see the world differently.
You know, marrying the fact that I want to draw, and then I want to animate, and then I want to do sound design, and then I want to program, and then I want to write. Games brings all that together. It was like coming home when I found gaming.
I feel like there's a space for everyone, and it doesn't really matter where you came from or who you were before. It's if you love games, then there's a spot for you within the indie game scene.
I want people to be able to express themselves that traditionally we have either ignored or silenced.
Anybody can be an indie developer. I go to high schools and tell kids, you could start coding tonight.
You see a person play something, and if their eyes light up, I know that they got what I was trying to say.
Just seeing like pure, genuine emotion when somebody's playing something you've made is kind of the best thing ever.